noticed too that we've got a canteen in here where you can buy coffee and some food. That's been a great advantage to the museum, and here's the roulettes coming from behind. And from behind now, ladies and gentlemen, the roulettes are coming over in what we call the eagle formation. You can see roulette number 5 and roulette number 6 on the outside of the formation, flying a very difficult line abreast manoeuvre. Watch as they transition from the eagle into the wedge during the wing over. Throughout the display today, ladies and gentlemen, the aircraft will be flying as low as 250 feet, that's only 80 metres above the ground, and it speeds upwards of 250 knots, that's upwards of 400 kilometres an hour for those of you working in metric. The aircraft are flying nice and close. They're only sitting about 3 metres distance between the wingtips there. In order to fly all the different formations, each of the wingmen have to pick a visual cue off the leader's aircraft, and they're looking out the whole time, manipulating the controls to maintain their position. There is no computers or autopilots or anything like that during our displays. This is all visual flying and hands and feet, stick and rudder. To our left hand side now, the team prepare for an offset loop followed by a fly past. Ladies and gentlemen, the pilots are pulling about 4G, that's 4 times the force of gravity. Each pilot fully kitted can weigh upwards of 100 kilograms, so right now the pilots are feeling about 400 kilos of force throughout their bodies. Flying in today is the Pilatus PC-9 training aircraft. It was designed by the Pilatus company of Switzerland. The first 5 models that were delivered to the Air Force were built in Switzerland and then ferry flighted out here, but the remaining of the aircraft are actually built under licence right here in Australia. They were introduced into Air Force service in 1988. The team have now transitioned into the Swift formation. This represents the wings of the Swift bird, which is also the same wings that the pilot brevet that every pilot wears very proudly on his chest is based on. And from the right hand side now, the team will transition into what we call the leader's benefit. In this formation, all of the wingmen will fly a very difficult line of rest formation directly behind the leader for his benefit. The PC-9 aircraft is a twin-seat tandem configuration aircraft, so we use it for training. Typically we'll have a student sitting in the front seat with the instructor sitting in the rear seat. These aircraft you see in front of you are based at the RAAF base East Sale, and we come under part of the Central Flying School that's based out there, where all the guys in the team are also qualified flying instructors. We are only a part-time team. So during the week, they're all teaching on the flying instructors course, teaching qualified Air Force, Navy and Army pilots how to become instructors to teach at our basic schools. The aircraft is capable of flying at altitudes of up to 25,000 feet. It's an unpressurized cabin, so we do have an oxygen mask and a continuous supply of oxygen to help us with that, as well as at speeds of up to 320 knots. Ladies and gentlemen, get your cameras ready as the team make their run in for the twin break. You can see to our left and right hand side now, roulettes number 5 and roulettes number 6, what we call the synchro pair, have split off as they pull up for a half lazy, before coming back head to head at a closing speed of over 800 kilometers an hour.
These guys are go.
Watch as roulette 5 and 6 miss each other by only a matter of meters and enter into our namesake maneuver, the roulette wheel. From behind now, the remainder of the formation, what we refer to as roulette red, come in for a box barrel roll. Now that they have 2 less aircraft in the formation, they are flying slightly tighter and can afford to be a little bit more manoeuvrable throughout this manoeuvre. For anybody in the crowd today who is aspiring to be an Air Force pilot, keep this in your mind as you watch the display. Everything you see in front of you today you will get taught how to do as a trainee Air Force pilot. That is low-level flying, formation flying and aerobatics. The only difference is, in the roulettes, we come and do all 3 at the same time. To our right hand side now, the synchro pair are returning for the roulette mirror. Throughout this manoeuvre, roulette number 5 will fly inverted directly above roulette number 6 with only a matter of a couple of meters between their tails. You will notice there's no trickery here. Roulette 5 is flying directly above roulette number 6. Unlike many aerobatics teams around the world, you would fly this as an offset manoeuvre. Throughout the display, ladies and gentlemen, the roulette leader is calling all of the formation changes over the radio. As the team come in for the snake loop from the right hand side, we'll listen in as Dan calls them in for this loop.
Straight foot. Snake loop.
You can see by adding the delay in between each of the pull-ups, it has put each of the wingman into a perfect combat position as they come down the bottom of the loop. So who are the mums we have in the crowd here today? Throw your hands up, all the mothers. Happy Mother's Day. From behind now, the synchro pair, making their run in for the roulette heart. And today we dedicate the heart to all you mothers out there. Happy Mother's Day, everyone. To our right hand side now, roulette red returning for the corkscrew. In this manoeuvre, roulette 1 will fly inverted, whilst roulette number 4 quite literally flies barrel rolls around the remainder of the formation. Number 1's just hanging out there inverted, he's having a good time. push the aircraft into a max rate steep turn. He'll be pulling 6G throughout this turn, and you can see how tight he is able to fly the aircraft in a very small circle.
Josh, let's slide down.
Roulette 5 is now putting the aircraft into a slow loop. For this manoeuvre, he is flying it on the buffet of the stall at 4G and only using about 1,000 feet of altitude for that loop. Everybody give him a wave as he departs. To the left-hand side now, the remainder of the team pulling up for the card 5 loop. Correction, they've changed it to a card 5 fly past. This manoeuvre, of course, named because it represents the number 5 from a deck of cards. The Roulettes, of course, are not the first aerobatic team of the Air Force. That title goes to the Red Sails. They were formed in 1962, flying 4 Vampire aircraft. In 1963, they were disbanded and then reformed as the Telstars. And in 1970, the Roulettes were formed flying the Macchi aircraft. The Roulettes have operated continuously since 1970, equipping with the PC-9 in 1988, and very shortly we will be equipping with the Pilatus PC-21. This is just a new, bigger version of the PC-9 with completely updated avionics, cockpit. It's going to have computer, heads-up display, and an autopilot. And it's going to meet the training requirements of both now and into the future for all of our pilots going onto the advanced 5th and 6th generation aircraft. We'll listen in to Dan again as he calls the team in for the rollbacks.
Ready.
So strict.
Not only does it look impressive, ladies and gentlemen, it's also a very efficient way of transitioning the team into what we call the Vulcan formation. The team just conducting a positioning wing over now before they'll come back for a Vulcan barrel roll. Now I see a lot of cameras in the audience today. We do have a Facebook page, Air Force Roulettes. If you've got any good shots, we'd love to see them. Post them up to our page. You can follow us there as well, and you can find out all the information about our displays each season. We are coming up towards the end of the season for this display season, and that will be finishing up at the end of the month where we head up to Queensland to the old station fly-in in Raglan. The team pulling up for the Vulcan barrel roll now. At the back and on the outside of the formation, Roulettes number 5 and 6 are having to make a lot of power changes, a lot of corrections to maintain their perfect formation. For anybody interested to know more about the Roulettes, we also have a webpage. It's airforce.gov.au/Roulettes. And if anybody wants to know about becoming a pilot in the Air Force or any other jobs in the Defence Force, jump onto defencejobs.gov.au. Watch as the team transition back into the wedge formation as they come in for a wedge barrel roll. As I mentioned earlier, all of the members of the team are also qualified flying instructors, and it is quite a long road to become a Roulette member. After flying at least one operational tour, they've got to become an instructor, go to one of our basic schools, that's either basic flying training school in Tamworth or 2 flying training school over at RAAF Base Pierce to instruct on our trainee pilots. They then come back to the Central Flying School to teach on the instructor courses before being selected to enter the Roulette team. Typically once they're in the team, they'll do anywhere between 2 and 4 seasons as a wingman before progressing on to something else. And then some of the very lucky ones get to come back as the Roulette leader. We do have a number of PC9s that we are operating around the country, as well as at RAAF Base East Sale. There's about 40 plus PC9s that operate at number 2 Flying Trainer School at RAAF Base Pearce. We have 2 PC9s at the Aircraft Research and Development Unit in RAAF Base Edinburgh in Adelaide. And we also have 4 grey PC9s. They operate at RAAF Base at Williamtown in Newcastle in a forward air control training role. The team have now transitioned into Delta for the final manoeuvre, which will be the bomb burst. Ladies and gents, have your cameras at the ready. Ladies and gents, boys and girls, that concludes our display today. Thank you very much for coming out and watching. We will be hanging